All right, everybody. Today I wanted to make a video on change data capture with Postgres and Golang. If you're not already familiar with change data capture, it's basically a way to subscribe and be notified of data changes that happen in your database. So in Postgres, we usually use something called listen notify, which is a sort of pub/sub feature that it has, and we'll use that along with triggers. So basically, this diagram illustrates what we're going to be doing. We're going to have some client that is basically mutating data in a users table, and we're going to have a trigger on the users table that's listening to any mutation actions. And when that actually happens, it's going to be submitting a JSON structure like this to a channel, and we will have another Go application that's actually listening to that channel and subscribing for changes. For this code, I'm going to be referencing a blog post from like 2015, but it's actually quite good and it's got relevant examples. But I'm going to use this to get started, and I'll go ahead and walk you through the existing code that I have, and we'll be building upon that. For running the database, I'm using the Postgres Docker container with Docker Compose. I've got a basic database schema set up using Go migrate. This is what the users table looks like. Pretty basic, nothing too fancy about this. I've got two separate Go apps set up. One is the writer, which will be responsible for sending the mutations. And then the other will be the listener code. This is not implemented. And I've got some basic code here just to make the initial database operations straightforward. So these are using some helpers to set up the database connection, the initial model for the user, and some create and update helpers. So what I'd like to do is just run this code initially, show you what I've got. First things first, I need to set up the database here, db. Okay, so this will set up my tables. Let's go check that out and make sure that everything's good here. Oops. I've got a users table. Let's look at the schema. Oops. Cool. So I've got the table set up there. I've got this writer app. Let's take a look at what that looks like. All right, so it just prints out the initial JSON. What I'd like to do is update this to submit an update statement at some interval. So what I'm going to do is set up the initial code for that. What I think I'm going to use is a ticker here. So let's go ahead and get that started. So at 5 seconds, we're good to go, and we can stop the ticker. And in a for loop with a select, we can just listen to the tick channel. And within this, let's do store.update u. Here's the user. And I need to update the user with some information. So I'm just going to put the timestamp in one of the fields and call it a day. And let's do the email as well. Doesn't matter. And okay, so we've got these update operations happening every tick of 5 seconds. I want to print out the user as well. So let's move this code up here. And yeah, let's try this out and see what happens. Duplicate key, okay. Let's try that again. All right, so we got our first update. got our second update. Cool. So let's just double check what's in here. We've got a single record that's being updated. That's good. I'm going to delete this. And now what we can do is start on the listener. So actually what I'd like to do is first demonstrate how the listen notify functionality actually works. So first things first, we need to set up our trigger in our database migration. So that will be the next thing to do. Okay, like I said, I'm going to be referencing this blog post so that I can just get rolling pretty quickly. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, throw that into one of my migration files here, trigger up. I've already got this kind of set up. And basically it's going to create a new trigger function called notify event. And we're declaring some data, which is actually going to be the JSON implementation of the row that was updated or inserted or deleted. You'll notice that if the operation is delete, we're getting the old data, and if it's an insert or update, we're actually receiving the updated data, or the new data. From there, we're actually just constructing a new JSON object with the table name, the action, which would be insert, update, or delete, and the data that was changed or inserted. From there, we're going to be doing the pg notify command. This is going to be using basically the publish operation, and the channel name here we probably want to change. Let's call this users channel. And we are converting the JSON here to text. So this notification will be sent as a JSON payload. And yeah, that is a good starting point, I think. This will give us what we want. And I think there's another thing we need to add here from this, which is this actually creating the trigger. Okay, I'm gonna just throw both of these in here. Create trigger users notify event on users. Create unexpected. All right. Cool. All right, I'm gonna run the migration, see what happens. It says no change. Uh-oh, let's do this. Just gonna drop everything. I'm gonna run this. Now I want to check and see if the triggers are there. So let me look at the actual table schema again. After that's created, that looks... Triggers, users notify event. After insert or delete or update on users for each row, execute notify event. So that looks good to me. Okay, so I'm gonna run my writer script again. There we go. Okay, so now what we can do is take a look at implementing our listener. So we've got this writer running, it's sending updates. Now I'm going to write a Go application that can receive these updates. All right, so notice that I've pulled in the libpq Postgres library. We're going to be using this to create the listener that's going to be subscribing to the channel that we've set up. So first things first, I'm going to leave that open. We can basically just create this PQ new listener. So I'm just going to start there and see what happens. it accepts a name, which is basically our data source name, to connect to the Postgres instance. A min reconnect interval, a max reconnect interval, and an event callback. Min reconnect interval controls the duration to wait before trying to reestablish the database connection after connection loss. After each consecutive failure, this interval is doubled until max reconnect interval is reached. So this is basically doing an exponential backoff for trying to reconnect. So we're just inserting some durations there, no biggie. And this event callback type is just a function that we'll insert. So to start, let me just get the data source name. So I've already got this set up. And I don't want to do that. I want to do log.fatal. Cool, that looks good to me. I will pass in this data source name, the min reconnect interval and max reconnect interval. Let's just do time.second times 5, and then time.minute. And then we got this helper function. It passes in the event listener type. I'm basically just going to do some logging here. So it can be one of these types. I will just copy and paste this. And we'll just do that. Yeah, just log those out. So I've got this new listener. It returns the PQ listener. So I will get that here. Now I need to use the listener and tell it what channel I care about. Actually, I'm going to ping it first and make sure that this works. So listener.ping, that looks good. If error, will that work? I wonder if this will work before establishing the channel. Let's try that. Log.fatal. And then let's listen to the channel. Listener.listen to the channel. This is the channel that corresponds to this channel here. We could make this dynamic if we want, if we wanted to make this more reusable, but this is fine. Okay, so this returns an error as well. We'll just log it out. And let's see. Listen starts listening for notifications on a channel. Calls to this function will block until an acknowledgement has been received from the server. Listener automatically reestablishes the connection after connection loss. So this function may block indefinitely if the connection cannot be reestablished. It'd be good if there was a context that could be passed so that we don't have to hang indefinitely, but let's just do this and see what happens. No connection. I want to make these more obvious. All right, we'll see what happens. Failed to ping. Okay, failing there. I'm just gonna close this. Oops. Start the database. Failed to ping. I'm going to create the database because I've definitely connected using this data source name in this app. Postgres URL. Is that right? Oops. All right. I ping the database in here, so if this fails, maybe we'll know something's up. All right, so this is fine. So something's messed up here. All right, that was so stupid. I got this working now. Basically, I moved this ping down after the listen channel. I was trying a bunch of different stuff, trying different configurations on the database connection, but basically, this works. This will listen to the channel, and I've got these updates happening in this other tab, and then now we can just listen here, and it's now giving us the connected message. So now what we can do is actually listen to the notify channel that's on the listener itself. So let's go ahead and start that. We're going to do a similar thing. Listener.notify. It's going to give us a notification object, which will have some data in it. So we can say it's going to be a JSON, or that JSON message that we've prepared here. So let's just print out whatever that is. So we'll just print out the data like that. And all right, so we're getting notifications here. That's cool. Now let's make this a little bit better. Let's do something like, actually in here, maybe I'll create a new type called change data capture event. And it's going to have that table name. It's just going to be called table. So string JSON table, and then we have action, string JSON action. But now I'll go ahead and make this generic. So that we can make this more kind of reusable, I guess, in the future. Data will be of type T. And then we got, that was what I wanted. There we go. So now in this listener, got var event cdc event of type user. Okay, so it's going to be like that. I'm going to do JSON dot run Marshall if error not equal to nil. We've got the n.extra byte. And let's use this event log.fatal. Okay, and now we can just print out, oh no, now we got the entire object. We can say for a table, let's just say event.table. All right. Update received for table users. Cool. Yeah, so that's cool. Now we've got like a basic listener working. We can refactor this a bit and put this logic into a single constructor to make this a little bit easier. So that's one thing we can do. New listener. I'm not going to do that. All right, I don't need that. All right, cool. So now we've got a little helper that we can just create based on the channel name and receive events for it. So there's a lot of cool applications for this type of thing. One thing you could do is like listen for updates to do some sort of cache invalidation. Another thing you could do is maybe have like a GraphQL subscription that's listening to these updates and pushing some data to the client. You could also like just throw it into some other pub subsystem. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can do with this, and we'll probably explore some of those ideas in some later videos. But yeah, if you liked this video and you want to see more content like this, definitely like the video and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.